Hi everyone, I'm Nick Olivo, and today we're looking at 5 things that you can do to enhance your Roll20 games to make them more immersive for your players. These are things I use in nearly every game I run, and my players have told me they really enjoy them, so I wanted to share them with you. Now these are system agnostic, so they'll work equally well for D&D, Call of Cthulhu, Traveler, or whatever game that you like to play. Now, I do want to stress that you don't need to do any of these things. You can run a wonderful game without any of this stuff, and only you know what's going to be fun for your table. So take these as the suggestions they are. Before we dive in, I'd just like to thank Roll20 for sponsoring this video. Alright, so number 1, landing pages. Landing pages help set the tone and theme of your campaign. They're just a regular page in Roll20 that you load up with assets that are related to your adventure. Here's the landing page I created for my Scarlet Citadel campaign. I started out with this table background and the image of the town that the players were working from, and then as the party adventured and found cool items, or as they did shenanigans as PCs are wont to do, new things got added to the table with a little note. For example, our monk used to wear a young dragon skull as a hat, and then every time she sized up a new enemy, she'd consider whether or not their skull would make for good headwear. And then ultimately, when game night started, my players would get excited. They would start looking for what was new on the table from their previous adventure. I used Vile Tiles tabletops for most of the assets here, and I'll drop a link to that down in the video description. Landing pages can also convey information about the campaign. So here's one that I did for an Acquisitions Incorporated game, and in addition to the active quests that the party was currently on, I also had this chart that showed their standing with various factions and townships in-game, and as they helped or hindered those factions, I'd move these tokens accordingly. I also put on these NPCs of note so that the players wouldn't forget about the important contacts that they'd made. And then just one final example is this one that I did for my Curse of Strahd campaign, and there were really 2 main things I was tracking here. One was the party's location on this map of Barovia, so I just moved this green pin around as they traveled from location to location, and then also this journal which showed how long we had until Strahd's wedding. That was the ticking clock that was encouraging the PCs to keep moving throughout the campaign. So landing pages are really useful to set the tone of your campaign, convey useful information to your players, and just, again, increase that overall immersion. Number 2, mood shots. Mood shots increase the immersion by giving your players a first-person view of whatever they're looking at. If you're playing a Theater of the Mind game, you might already be doing this, where instead of battle maps, you have images of whatever location or thing the players are looking at. And the Delta Green modules do a really good job of this, where you get a full-page view of whatever building, office, or horrific cabin in the woods you're about to explore. Now, you can also do this with handouts and show those to the players when the time comes, but I found that my journal was getting filled up really fast when I did that. So what I like to do is just grab an image that reflects the area and put that right on the map. So like here, I've got these catacombs that my players were exploring, and I kind of want the catacombs to be creepy, so I found this royalty-free image out on Pixabay of these skulls that are just sort of like in the wall. And so what I did was I grabbed that image, and what I'm going to do is just drop that image right onto the GM layer of my map. I'm just going to put it right here over the actual room where I want it to be, and then I'm just going to scale it down a little bit, like so. And now what I can do is when my players get to this room, I can go to the GM layer, click on this image, and then press Shift-Z on the keyboard. And that pops up this full screen view to each of your players so that they can see exactly what it is that you want them to look at. And this works for tokens too. So if your players are coming up against a brand new monster they'd never fought before, just click on the monster's token, again, Shift-Z, and it gives a really up close and personal view of whatever it is your players are about to encounter. And the reactions from my players when I've done this are always great. It usually goes along the lines of, "What is that?" which just warms a DM's heart. Number 3, music. When I was a player in a Curse of Strahd campaign, my DM was absolutely fantastic at incorporating music into our game, and that inspired me to try and do the same. Music adds a whole new level of immersion that can really ratchet up tension during exploration and combat. For example, when I ran the Call of Cthulhu scenario The Dare, I had music from the movie The Omen playing in several scenes, and as the players explored a haunted house, one of them was like, "God, this music is creeping me out!" And that was just a moment of pure DM happiness. Now, one suggestion on this is avoid tracks that have vocals. Someone singing is often distracting from what's going on in the game, unless that singing is actually part of the scene. Of course, the one exception to this is if you've got a boss fight going on, and then chanting in Latin is absolutely appropriate. I use a lot of video game soundtracks and movie scores in my games. Bloodborne, in particular, is a great one, and I've used Thymesia quite a bit as well. I also use a site called Epidemic Sound, which has tons of music in a lot of different styles. I don't have a relationship with them, but I'll put a link to their site down below. Number 4, sound effects. So, your party gets caught in a thunderstorm. A dragon drops down from the sky. A bunch of ninjas explode through a window. When I ran the Shattered Obelisk, one of the creatures that the players fought were these weird little fleshy triangle monsters called Encephalon Gemules. And given how alien they were, I decided to give them a sound effect. And I wasn't sure how that landed until a couple of sessions later when the party made a perception check while they were exploring a dungeon and they heard... And one of my players said, "Oh crap, triangles." Like, he was scared. It was great. So these effects add flavor to your narration, increase immersion, and can also be used to encourage your players to move along if they're dallying. So if your party is out in that thunderstorm and they're taking too long to go into the only available shelter, the one that's definitely not a haunted house, a few peals of thunder will get them moving. I get most of my sound effects from Epidemic Sound too. And finally, voices. Using a different voice for NPC dialogue can help make those NPCs feel more real. And I think every DM has done the angry Scottish voice for a dwarf, or the snarling voice for a dragon. But we all have limits on how many voices we can do, if any at all. I have exactly one voice that I can use for female NPCs, and I get bored with that after a while. So I use a tool called Voice Mod to augment the voices I can use. And I've highlighted Voice Mod in other videos, but just to give you a flavor for it, let's say my players are up against an evil sorceress. Instead of using my generic female NPC voice, I can instead
use this runic sorceress, ready to destroy these foolish mortals.
In my Dungeons of Drakkenheim campaign, one of my PCs has a sister who's important to her personal quest, and so I used Voice Mod
to create this custom voice for her.
And Voice Mod can also be used to apply effects to your voice. For example, I had clones of an NPC speaking in unison during a Call of Cthulhu game, and so I used this 2-in-1 for that. With all of these things, a little goes a long way. Not every NPC needs a special voice. Not every sound the party encounters needs a sound effect. Look for the places and the characters who are going to make a big impact and focus on them. And like I said earlier, I'm not saying you have to do any of this stuff. Some DMs don't like including sound effects or voices, and that's totally cool. But I enjoy doing them, and so have my players, so again, I wanted to share it with you. If any of these sound interesting to you, give them a try, and then talk with your players afterwards about what they thought, and if they enjoyed it, keep doing it, and if they didn't, hey, you can leave them out. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming.